A lot of recent YouTube commentary has focused on the kind of character many may describe as a Mary Sue. In simple terms, a Mary Sue, almost always a female, is depicted as an overpowered character lacking in flaws, struggle, and proper development, which would otherwise allow the audience to garner any kind of empathy for her or investment in her. Moreover, they are seen as idealized, unrealistic versions of a person, while stripping away the humanity that binds us together in the real world. These examples that are flashing across the screen right now serve as the focal point for much of this criticism. Rey from the Star Wars sequel trilogy, Mulan from Disney's 2020 live-action remake, Galadriel from Amazon's Rings of Power series, Jennifer Walters in She-Hulk, and basically any character played by Brie Larson. And let me just say that these criticisms are completely warranted. The message of girl power coming from these IPs and these characters are good on the surface, but they lack any substantive meaning beyond, hey, look, strong woman, women rule. That's unfair to the awesome female characters of the past, such as Ellen Ripley, Sarah Connor, Eowyn, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and so many others who earned respect and admiration from their audiences, not simply because they're women, but because they're relatable characters who go through relatable struggles while happening to be women. Now, these characters touch more on the superhero action genres, but we see similar issues with female characters elsewhere. This is perhaps most personified by Velma from the self-titled HBO Max series. Without going into extreme details, she is narcissistic, crude, mean, and generally unlikable in every way. A female character does not have to be written like this to succeed, and with the recently completed The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, we may now have our ideal representation of what this character should look like, and we thought it was high time to ignore these failed attempts at strong female characters and shine the spotlight on one that got it right. For those of you still with me here, thank you so much for making it this far in the video. We've got some good stuff coming up for you, but before we jump into that, I would like to take a quick opportunity to humbly ask that you consider subscribing to this channel and hitting that bell icon for notifications. We would appreciate it beyond words. Any and all support is highly welcome, and that is just about the best way to do so. Thank you so very much. This is now your official spoiler warning. Enjoy! The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel takes place in the late 1950s and early 1960s, primarily set in New York City. This was a different time for America in many ways, but specifically to this show, it is a different time for women. The general expectation for women was that they would get married, bear children, and tend to the household. If a woman worked, it was because she was single and, likely, looking for a husband. It is against this backdrop that we meet our protagonist, Miriam Maisel. Miriam, also referred to as Midge, is fulfilling the societal definition of womanhood to a T. She met her husband while in college, got married, and had 2 children. She supports her husband Joel in everything he does, including his ill-fated attempts at stand-up comedy. However, her seemingly ideal life comes crashing down when her husband declares he is leaving her. But from those ashes come a spark of hope, comes the reveal that she has a natural talent for stand-up comedy herself. Now, in the hands of those who were the creative forces behind Rey, Mulan, She-Hulk, and Galadriel, no, not that Galadriel, this one. This is where Midge would quickly start to win everyone over and prove she is the world's greatest stand-up, stomping on men along the way. Moreover, she would have done it completely on her own, without any guidance from those more experienced or any management from those who can provide a kind of logistical assistance that she couldn't have done on her own. She would have completely subverted her time period, which again was the late 50s and early 60s, when female comics were few and far between, and just been perfect. Midge, on the other hand, not only accepts help and mentorship, she seeks it out herself when she feels like she needs more of it. Ask yourself this: can you relate to a character who quickly achieves her goals without any kind of struggle? Is that something wherein you can see yourself in that character? Is it worth rooting for that character and becoming invested in that character if all they do is win battle after battle after battle, whether literal or figurative? Thankfully, we have Amy Sherman Palladino as the creator of this show, and as its executive producer alongside husband Daniel Palladino. She does an amazing job highlighting the struggles Midge has to deal with as a woman in a man's world while still having struggles on her own. Despite Midge's natural talent, she bombs on stage more than once. She has to play to basket houses and do other small-time gigs. She has personal conflicts with her family, causing her to hide her ambitions from them, creating internal strife. She was left high and dry on an airport tarmac, recreating the worst moment of her personal life in a professional setting, having to watch the airplane that carried her hopes and dreams fly off into the dark night without her. Amongst all of this, in her successes and her failures, she doesn't go through any of this on her own. And as it pertains to her successes, she has definitely encountered some lucky breaks. Landing the telethon gig, right place, right time. Getting arrested at the same time as Lenny Bruce, right place, right time. Getting imprisoned with Gloria, leading to her gig at the Wolford, right place, right time. Gloria being the daughter of a senator and landing her the gig with Jackie Kennedy. You get the picture. This is okay. Everybody needs a little luck to fall their way, and when it happens to someone like Midge, someone who deserves it and is able to make the most of it definitely adds to her character development. Then there are the people who have helped her along the way. First and foremost, we have Susie Meyerson. When Midge does her initial spontaneous routine on the night that Joel leaves her, it's Susie who recognizes Midge's talent, convinces her of her talent, and harnesses that talent through lots of hard work and dedication. Despite their relationship ending rather acrimoniously, Shy Baldwin is clearly of great assistance to Midge, giving her her first real break and getting her name on a marquee. In more personal matters, Carol from Shy's band gives Midge sage advice about life on the road. Gordon Ford and his wife Hetty, especially Hetty, provide Midge with a true foot in the door towards stardom. Even Sophie Lennon provides Midge with help, however non-traditional and adversarial that help may be. But then, there's Lenny Bruce. As we mentioned earlier, it was only by happenstance that Midge and Lenny became friends. But they grew to mutually respect each other. That's the key, they mutually respected each other. And in turn, they were there for each other. Even though Lenny's fame was already established, and Midge was still trying to work her way there, they were equals in the emotional and spiritual realms. Lenny obviously did Midge a huge favor during Season 1, when, in the midst of the Sophie Lennon-inspired blacklisting by Harry Drake, he gave her the rub, so to speak, to get her burgeoning career back on track. But it was on the stage at Carnegie Hall, at the end of Season 4, where it went to the next level. This is the scene that changed everything. Midge had had her share of ups and downs, and in the post-Shy Baldwin world, there were more downs than ups. It appeared as though her big break was never going to come. Now, when I first saw this scene, I thought the internet would be flooded with complaints that Lenny Bruce mansplained to Midge. And yeah, some people did complain. But I honestly, and perhaps naively, believe that there were enough intelligent viewers out there to recognize that Lenny's plea, and that's what it was, a plea, just happened to be coming from a man to a woman. In its essence, it came from someone with experience to someone with extreme potential who could benefit from that experience. It is eminently easy to imagine 10 or 20 years down the road that Midge would be giving that exact same speech to another rising comic, with her in the Lenny Bruce role and the other comic in her role. And that could be a male or a female comic. It's not the gender at issue here. But this was Midge's tipping point. The playing field had been laid out in front of her, and it was up to her to take the ball and run it into the end zone. And she did just that. We were given a wonderful opportunity to grow with this character as she went through her own growth. Yes, her gender certainly mattered because, again, it was a much different time and place. Even those open-minded enough to accept a female comic still had to take the time to adjust to one. On the whole, there's no prejudice or sexism here. New things take time to adjust to, period. But beyond that, there was no need to imbue Midge with any kind of superpower. She had natural talent, but that talent needed to be honed, practiced, and perfected, and she needed guidance. The rest was up to her, and with that foundation, she absolutely rocked it. And we loved watching her build herself up to the point where she deservedly became a star. She has imperfections, lots of them, just like you do, just like I do, just like we all do, and she owns up to them. She knows she's not a perfect mother, and she knows spending time on the road will complicate her relationship with her children. But she does this in a manner that isn't selfish, especially given the societal expectations of the time would dictate that she be a full-time mother with no other outside interests. She was completely in the wrong in the way she ended things with Benjamin, and this was her response to being called out on that.
Benjamin, I owe you the biggest apology in the world. I am totally and completely ashamed of myself.
I never pegged you for a coward. That letter, that was a coward's move.
I know it was. You know, it's funny, I can stand on stage and say all sorts of uncomfortable, embarrassing, personal things, but the thought of standing in front of you, telling you, I just couldn't. So I wrote a letter, like a coward.
This is how a human being deserving of empathy acts. This is how we see ourselves in a character. This is a strong character. Not this. This is a strong character. Not this. This is a strong character. Not this. And this is a strong character. Not this. In total, Midge is a complete person. She is not idealized. She is not crude, outside of her act. She is not condescending. She is a strong character. And yes, she happens to be female. So, in turn, she is a strong female character, and a template for anyone else wishing to emulate her rousing success. Amy Sherman Palladino, Daniel Palladino, and the rest of the wonderful Mrs. Maisel writing staff deserve all the praise in the world for how this character was constructed. And much praise must also be sent to Rachel Brosnahan for her excellent portrayal of Midge. She was able to simultaneously display strength and vulnerability, hope and despair, and confidence and humility. And perhaps most importantly of all, she, like the rest of the cast and the rest of the show, never stopped being creative, daring, and above all, funny. Thank you so much for getting this far in the video. We truly hope you enjoyed it. We think the marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and specifically Mrs. Maisel herself, is truly what people need to strive for when going for the strong female character. She is authentic in every way and is an absolute joy to watch. If you agree with that statement, we would humbly ask that you like this video, that you share it with others, and if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification. We got lots of videos on this channel, many of them entertainment related, some of them are also sports related. It really helps us grow the channel, and it does the whole YouTube algorithm thing that we don't completely understand, but we do know it helps. Thank you again so very much, and if you haven't found your way to get all the way through The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, you should check it out. It's right there in the title. It is indeed marvelous. From CCC Productions, we thank you one last time, and we hope you have an awesome day.